Hey everybody, Uncle Gene here. Well, we're going to do the coal mines today. The old antique buildings, 40 years old. Now you're going to notice throughout this video that you'll see me in there talking and the voice doesn't match. I had to do a voice overlay. You know, you get so used to things around you, you don't hear them. So all the way through all them clips, when I went and played it all back and listened to them, I had chickens fighting, I had roosters crowing, I had dogs barking, people in the background were screaming and yelling, and I thought, okay, it'll be better if I just eliminate all the sound and just do a voiceover. So you're gonna see my mouth yakking when I might not be talking, and just ignore that. Most people don't have any problems ignoring me anyway. But anyway, let's get on to the video and I'll show you how I took these old antique piece of junk plastic buildings and kind of made them look pretty good. Okay, everybody. Now, this old coal mine is about 40 years old. It's been on a couple of different layouts. I'm going to put this as building one going to the mountain. And I'm going to cut a hole right there and put a chute that goes up to the coal mine. Now, this building, building two, is even older. Just an old, simple, cheap building. It was all the same colors, all the roof, the walls, everything. And I didn't know how to water. So I'm going to take out that side window right there, cut a hole in the side of building one, and make a chute going to the between them, and tie those two buildings in together. Now this building's got to have some repair done, and you can tell by that roof, it wasn't originally a metal roof, but with all the rust holes in it, and I want the two buildings kind of tied together, I'm going to treat it as a metal roof. Paint it kind of a silver gray. I'm just going to weather and rust it a lot heavier since it's obviously an older, rotted out roof. And that way the two will kind of go together. I think they'll look better that way. Not sure, but I think that originally was a tar paper with board slats holding it on. It's what it's supposed to be. But I want them to blend in, so I'm going to make it a metal roof. All right, now I'm going to make the chutes out of a little thin piece of styrene. I hang on to all my styrene scraps. I brought a bunch from America, and I love working with this stuff. We're going to make the chute to fit that little narrow spot in the back. Now I'm going to make one end of the chute flared out. That'll be the part up at the coal mine. That's where the coal harpers, if you've ever seen an old coal mine, it's kind of a big, I don't know, like a funnel shaped tray they dump the coal into. And then the other end will stay straight and narrow so it can slide in and out of that hole. Give me a little bit of adjustments for when I get it mounted. See, I can go almost a ½ inch deep before I hit anything. And same with the other building. I've got about a ½ inch in it. And then the first building, building A, is got a little bit less on that side, but still it's enough to work with back and forth that I can make them fit. Cutting this stuff is great. Like I said, it's easy to cut. When you glue it, it just like melts together. You can use modeling glue or super glue. You primer it. You can paint it with anything. I've painted it with acrylics. I've painted it with enamels. It's just a great invention, I guess, for us hobby people. We really, you can do anything with it. You bend it, curve it, heat it, shape it. It's just sanding it. It's just so workable. It's better than plastic. It's better than wood. It doesn't have the strength because it's usually thinner stuff. It's real flexible, but that's an advantage. There's just so much you can do with it. Just kind of let your mind run wild with what you want to make out of it. Like here, I'm cutting the side pieces to go on the chute. I think my blade's getting dull. And I don't know if you've noticed that it's one of those emery boards, sandpaper deals. My wife gets those things. They're fine, medium, coarse, and we just have. I told her to order like a case of each of them because I use them in the model making. Now, when you're gluing anything up, but especially this styrene, if you'll glue it up on a metal base, I've got 1, 2, 3 blocks. I used to have just a solid block of steel that was machined. Super glue, any kind of glue, epoxies, anything, it will stick to the metal, but it doesn't adhere to it like it does wood or your cutting mats. If you try to glue something up on that cutting mat, you just about got to cut the mat to get it off. But you glue it up on this steel, and like I said, it will glue to it. It'll stick. It'll hold it in place, but it is real easy to get it off. You'll see here. I'm going to take an X-Acto knife and just slide underneath it, and it pops right off. I just wish I could find that steel block I had without all the holes in it. Let's see here. Look at that. Just comes right off. That's just a little tip or trick to keep in your mind when you're gluing with that stuff. If you just glue it up on a piece of steel, even though it seems like it's glued to it and stuck, it pops off real easy. And there's what the chute from the mine will look like. Okay, and here's what I was talking about. I've got the little hole cut, and you can see it's kind of rectangular. It really looks crooked in this video, but it actually runs with the lines on the slatting. And see, my little chute will slide in there. I have to put it in kind of in an angle, but you can see I've got a good ½ inch in and out that I can work with. So that's going to make it much easier hooking it to the mountain. Now, the one issue that I had when I first got this right there, I realized I can't angle it enough. So I'm going to have to take a file and file up those edges a little bit so the sides of the chute can adjust up higher. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the side. I'll cut a hole that will go into the building too. And this is what I use. It's a roto tool. It's like a cordless Dremel. I don't know. I got it online somewhere. Rechargeable battery. But dang, that thing is handy. I put a little diamond carbide pointed bit in it. I can drill with it. I can router with it. And it's just much faster than using a knife. Well, let's just show you here. I'll try to do this where you can kind of see it, but there's no variable speed on it. It's either just on or off, but it does have just enough torque when I'm cutting plastic. You can see it just drills right in there. And then I can go sideways with it and use it like a router. Of course, it's just like a router when you're cutting it. It wants to follow the torque of the bit, and so it's hard to get a straight line with it. But you can get the most of it cut out and then take you a file and get in there and clean that up. Now that building, it was right where a window was. So I took the window out. I'm thinking that if there's too much room on one side or the other, I can put some little pieces of wood, make it look like it's boarded up. But it ended up, I didn't have to do that because one, you just can't hardly see it. And the chute ended up almost right in the middle of the window. It was just a perfect lineup. And you can see just take my file and kind of square it up a little bit. You again, no one is going to see this hole. You'd have to bend your neck around the corner upside down and then look at an angle to see where it went. See, I'm almost the right size. Got to file it just a little bit more. Okay, there's what the chutes are going to look like in the buildings. Even though those two buildings are really totally different, it just ties them together somehow. But I like the way that's going to turn out. Ended up that window, the chute comes right down in the middle of where the window was. So I'm not going to board up anything on it. You can't really see it anyway. The old building number two, has just got a lot of work. I still got to fix some things on it, clean up. But you can see it looks like it's probably 20 or 30 years older than building A. But I'm liking the way that turned out. Now, I'm going to get started painting here, and what I'm going to use is a medium gray and a metallic silver. The medium gray was just too dark, and the metallic silver was too shiny. So I'm trying to find a in between that I like. And then I'm going to paint the chutes the same color, which ends up being almost the same color as the primer. But once I put a lot of rust on them and weathering and black and coal in the center of it, it's going to blend in good. And see, you can't really see it there because I hurried it up, but there's a texture on that was obviously a tar paper. And like I said, if I'd have made it that way originally, I'd probably left it that way. But I want the two buildings to look more tied in, and I just think a metal roof would tie in better than a tar paper roof. That'd just be I don't know, just too different for me. But I don't think anyone will really notice the difference. Yeah, I'm kind of liking the way that as it's drying out there, the color it's looking like it's just aged more. I think once I get all the rust and everything on there, it's going to be just like I want. Of course, if I had that artistic blood in me, guys know how to mix that paint where they know it come out exactly like they want it. Put a piece of little red in it, or yellow, or green, or purple, and they get the color they want, and they know that in their head. And me, it's just trial and error. I mix colors where I think it might come out right, and sometimes it's just nowhere close. But this is actually going to turn out just about like I want it here. Now, the other areas on that building also have that tar paper pattern, and I may go ahead and do that to the rest of the structure. Kind of like an old building when you're fixing it up and you've got a mixture. It just looks pretty good. Now, the rusting on it is the old traditional brown oxide, and everybody's favorite's the burnt sienna. And I'm going to go a little bit heavy around those holes where they've, obviously just rotted plumb through. Get you a little weather, a little rust on the edges. It's where it always seems to go more. And I'm kind of streaking it on that slope part there because it obviously has more runoff. But get the brown oxide on there, and then we'll go on top of it with the burnt sienna. It's a little bit brighter, newer rust look, but it's going to dress it up good. I think I'm probably going to have to get my pastels out and do a little weather chalking on it to blacken it up. It needs blackened up anyway because it's a coal mine. Got coal dust all over it. But starting to look like a pretty good match. Put a little bit more rust on that building A, and think they're going to turn out okay. All right, there's what they look like with the chutes in them and rusted and the roof rusted. And you can see I did do the tar paper look and put a little brown on the wood slats holding it, but they blend in even though they're different. It just blends in better than that old crappy brown that it was originally. But yeah, I think those are going to work. They look like they belong together, and like one of them was built a few years after the other one, like 20 years after the other one. All right, there it is. First building's finished, glued down, and you can see my little miniature scale track coming out of the mountains there for the coal car. Now we're going to get the other building mounted. Now I put glue and mount them down, but sometimes I'll go around and whatever landscape material I'm doing, I'll put some right around the base edge, and it helps kind of hold it in place better. Just instead of depending on just the bottom glue, I kind of put a little extra there. After about 20 times, I finally got that wiring through that hole. Trying to get it lined up. That little flimsy base on the other end, it wasn't broken. It just was wiggled and flimsy, and I guess through the years it warped a little bit. So I had to line it up, and I'm having to line that chute up just right. I put just regular Elmer's glue or white glue, and so it is forgiving while I'm trying to move it around and center it. It does okay. All right, let's weight it down and see how it turns out. All right, I'm going to put down the sand and gravel mix now. It's going to be around the coal yard here. It's a little bit of a light sand, and it had some dark pebbles in it, but I wanted to darken it up, so I mixed a little bit of, it wasn't a turf, it was just a powdery, kind of a brown color, and it kind of darkened it a little bit, and it ended up working okay. Now, see, with my trimmers, I don't have to shake that cup very hard. It just automatically does it. Now, I know got a lot of guys will say, oh, you should tape your track first and everything. I've never had a problem with that. It all vacuums up. And shoot, I vacuumed this board 3 or 4 times, every time I'm working on it or even run the trains. Now, here's something I noticed when I was putting this down, standing up above it. I didn't notice that big gap in the corner down there at the ground of that building, too. So you sometimes do that. You do a video of your work, and then you sit back and watch the video and you say, oh crap, I missed this and I missed that. But I did go back and fix that. Let's see, there's my mixture. Just kind of mix some brown dirt in it, and it kind of tones it down a little bit. Yeah, so I noticed something here the other day. I was watching a video and realized I had a tree that was leaning like a hurricane had hit it. Okay, here's you a little trick. Take your piece of cardboard and kind of make a little chute, and then those underneath places, like next to a building or under a porch, you can't get to it. And as soon as I move my arms, you'll see, use that chute, drop your landscape material on that chute, and it kind of flings it underneath where you're trying to get to. I've had straight down the side of a building, and I can drop grass or gravel or whatever, and it still won't go next to the building. And so I just kind of brainstormed this thing. I don't know if I saw it somewhere or I actually was smart enough to figure it out, but it's helped get up next to structures and underneath edges that you just can't get to without dropping it all over everything. And you can see even with the dirt in there, and it doesn't really go down evenly like all over, but that's okay. It's kind of how you want it to look. Okay, now here I had some gray ballast material. I put it in a little medicine cup, and I buy those things, like 200 at a time, and they're great for mixing paints or just all kinds of stuff. Anyway, I mixed some black paint and just kept stirring them around until they were all coated real good. Let them dry, and I kind of stirred them a few more times just so they didn't stick together. With craft paints, acrylic paints, you don't have that real glossy look. But playing with this before, I find out that when you put the glue on it, or like I do a 50 water, 50 glue, put a little alcohol, you drip your glue on it. When it dries, it's glossy. So it really looks good. It's a good little trick to use. Oh, I've changed foliage colors and everything else doing that trick. Just put it in a little cup, mix a little paint, and just keep stirring it so it doesn't stick together. But that's how I made my coal. I know you probably can buy it. I think I've seen it somewhere that you can order pre-done coal like that. But again, here in the Philippines, for me to order something, it might be on Amazon or eBay for $5, and it'll cost me $25 to get it here. Now, see, here's sprayed it with the alcohol water, and now I'm mixing it with the 50-50 glue and water mixture. A little more alcohol on top of it, and that glue just melts all over it, runs way down in. I use that on all my ground foliage, everything. I just put a second coat on it. It holds all the foliage, keep it from flaking apart, down the line. But it surprisingly, it really does anchor everything down really well. Trying to get in them little hard places like that. You work so hard to do that when the reality is 99% of the people will never look in there and never see it. But it's there. This is your layout, and that's the kind of things that make you strive to be just a little bit better, look a little nicer. And I use this same rock and mixture. I filled the dump truck up and a hopper car that's going to go in there. All right, here I'm taking my chalk powder. I think they're pastel sticks is what they're called. But I just take a straight razor and scrape them, make the powder, and putting the little black in there to just make it look like coal dust everywhere. And it's amazing how you can put that stuff down and it just doesn't come off. It will wash out of your clothes, but you almost looks like it stains them. Now I got a little dump truck here that is actually, it was in a package I'd never opened, and it was from Bachman. And there was like a dump truck, a cement truck, and I don't remember whatever else it was. So I did some good weathering on it and got it all fixed up. Looks like a dirty old antique dump truck there. Put some of the coal in it. And then I I think it's a CS hopper, and put some coal in it, weathered it up real good. And there you go. That's what it's going to look like. Here's your kind of close up. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed that video and you learned a little bit. I appreciate y'all's patience and understanding for the voice editing thing that was going on. I can't help it. We've got goats and chickens and dogs and cats and sheep and people, and it's out of my control. And I appreciate your patience too. watching me work with my trimmers. Just a tip, a word of advice for everybody. If you've got a handicap, don't stop doing what you love. Just learn to work around it. Okay, well, I appreciate you guys watching. I'll see y'all on the next video.